all know that, right? At the end of the day, we all kind of know that we're expendable. Maybe a whole movie about it called The Expendables, remember? It's like one of my favorite movies. It brings tears to my eyes. I'm joking. But that's the thing. So the safest place in the world for a woman should be next to her husband, but that isn't always the case. And if that's the case in your home, that's not okay. And that's not what Peter is saying. Peter isn't saying, submit to your husband, be subject to your husband so that he can slap you around or beat you or emotionally, physically, verbally abuse you and all that. That's not okay. And the other thing that's not okay is that you should go along with whatever he wants to do. If he's involved in sinful behavior, you don't need to go along with that. You follow God over him. So that's just understand. I have to qualify these things because it's really easy to look at that and make these blanket applications that are not correct. Now, guys, here's the deal. Men, husbands, if you are doing this right, your wife should never have to feel like she's submitting to you. She shouldn't have to feel like, I got to submit to this guy again. You shouldn't feel like that to her. You should be living in such a way that makes it easy for her to trust you. If you have to say, I'm the leader, then guess what? You're not the leader, right? Like I've never in the 26 years that I've been married to Judy, I've never said, I'm the leader here. And I've never said, you need to submit to me. Are you kidding me? That's why I'm still standing here with a pulse and stuff. I can't even imagine that. But what I have said over the years is, hey, listen, I do accept the responsibility of being the one that has to provide for this family. Not that, of course we both work and, contribute but I'm the one that has to bear the burden of making sure that this family is taken care of in terms of finances, in terms of safety and all these kinds of things. And because of that, there's some things that are concerning to me that I think we need to deal with, blah, 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 blah. And that's just, so, and that's just how I feel about it, and then we're able to have that discussion. So I can assert myself that way to go, I hope you understand, this is because I'm trying to be the best provider that I can, and I'm worried about this, or worried about that, and we can have those conversations. But in my home, I would tell you, if I might be the leader of the home, but I'm telling you what, she's the center of the home. She is the absolute center. Everybody knows it. The kids know it, it's pretty obvious. The kids are like, Dad, you're great, but Mom is amazing. They love her. In fact, I'll never forget when they were little, I think I might have told you this, but it just stuck with me that she was off in DC on a school trip with our son. And so it was just me and the girls. And after 3 or 4 days, they got sick of eating, leftover whatever. And the whole place is going crazy. And they came in one day and they're like, Dad, we really miss Mom. No offense against you, but if we had to pick one of you to die, we would pick you. And I'm like, yeah, so would I. It's just the way that it is, But she's the queen of my house, And so guys, look, some of you guys, your wife is trying really hard to submit to your leadership, but you're making it really difficult because you just make boneheaded decisions, either morally or financially or whatever. And it's she's going, I'm really trying here, but I don't know. You make it very difficult to believe in you. And that is the case with a lot of guys. Men, never underestimate the amount of ruin and destruction that you and I are capable of bringing into our home and our family by our decisions. It's generational. You cannot underestimate the power of what you do in public and in private and the effect that it can have for generations if you are not careful. So you and I want to live in such a way that your wife is able to do this and to follow this kind of teaching in a way that brings life to her and brings peace in her heart. And that's the second thing. The second thing is a wife becomes a powerful influence, not only when she affirms her husband's leadership in the home, but secondly, when she cultivates a peaceful presence. Now, here's another one that's going to be fun. Do not let your adorning be external, the braiding of hair and the putting on of gold jewelry or the clothing you wear, but let your adorning be the hidden person of the heart with the imperishable beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which in God's sight is very precious. Now, right here, this is what's amazing. Right here, this isn't Peter putting a restraint on women. This is actually Peter liberating women, setting them free from the slavery of the external. This is a massive paradigm shift, by the way. He's not saying that you can't braid your hair or put on gold. This again, we're talking first century, or put on gold jewelry or wear wonderful clothes or whatever. He's not saying that you can't wear makeup, and some people taking this way too far, and the women have to not, they just wear plain clothes, and like that's not what he's saying. He's saying don't make that your identity. Don't make that the most compelling thing about you, because at the end of the day, that's not who you are. You are so much more than that. And beauty escapes you. It's fleeting. It doesn't last forever. And beauty is so common. There will always be an abundance of attractive, beautiful women, but it's rare to have a woman who is able to capture the internal beauty of the feminine soul. And one of the things we're going to talk about a lot in this message is the fact that we're not just created in the image of God, but we exist as the image of God, male and female. And so as a man, you live in the male expression of the Imago Dei, the image of God. And as a female, it's the feminine expression of the Imago Dei. Equal. It's not, there's men and then down here there's women. No, male and female, he created them in his image. Massive principle that is informing what he is saying here. And so he talks about this gentle and quiet spirit that is an imperishable beauty. And so what we have is we have a culture where basically women are told, you got to look as beautiful as you can and then try to act as much like a man as you can. Be out and do all this stuff and basically function as well as a man can, plus have the added burden of looking as good as you can. And neither one of those things capture the heart of the feminine soul. And so you're on this treadmill of an unwinnable war, and it goes on and you exhaust yourself. What's compelling about you, ladies, shouldn't be your external. That's fine, but that's not who you are. What you are is your ability to cultivate a gentle and quiet spirit. Now here we go again. Well, what are you saying? Are you saying that women are just supposed to be in the background and not seen and not heard? No, we are not talking about personality. We are talking about disposition. You can have women who are incredibly outgoing and extroverted, that are incredibly catalytic and talkative, and they get things done and are out there and just the most easy to talk to people and are leaders, and yet they have a quiet spirit. There is an anxiety that they're riddled with. Conversely, you can have a woman who is shy, introverted, hardly says anything, and it's just nothing but an anxious presence just bleeding out everywhere. There's no joy, there's no peace, it's just like constant freaking out. And God, and what Peter's trying to say is, you cannot tie your disposition to your husband, you need to tie it to God. Your faith in God is going to drive your ability to be able to live in a home that maybe isn't with a perfect husband at all, but you're going to have a peacefulness because that peace comes from your faith in God and his ability to provide for you. And that's what's going to bring the beauty out in your heart. And that's what's going to be compelling, and that's what's going to be different. People are going to go, man, you're not like the other ladies. You don't have this external focus that's all you are, like a shell, that's shallow shell, and then underneath there's all this insecurity and freaking out. There's a peacefulness. Now again, when I'm saying this, I don't want you to hear another burden and requirement. And this is why it's so hard when we talk the passages of scripture that are addressing wives and women in particular, because of your, guys will go, yeah, whatever, tell me another thing I'm not doing, that's cool. But women oftentimes internalize these things, and you can see it as another burden or requirement. It's not a requirement. This is something that's supposed to set you free, not make your life more stressful, but give you more peace. Okay? This isn't for you to go, okay, another thing I need to do. Now I need to go work on being peaceful. No. You need to rest in the love that Jesus has for you and his ability to take care of you, right? And as you're doing that, your heart becomes at rest, and people go, whoa. There's a beauty there that's beyond this, right? And I just think that's really, obviously it's our whole culture that's obsessed with these kinds of things, and you have the opportunity to live different. And I could tell you this, that I'm not first. We talk about the peaceful and quiet spirit. Judy, we've been married for 26 years, and I can tell you this. I am not first in Judy's life. I'm second. I've been second. For 26 years, I've been second because Jesus is first. And that has been one of the main reasons we are still married. Because if she put me first, then she would be looking to me to meet all of her needs. And that would be really, really, you talk about a fruitless endeavor. I'm an imperfect person. I can't do that. So she's like, okay, God, you put this dude in my life, but my ultimate security rests in you. Now, obviously she's not perfect in that, but that's the journey. That's the paradigm, okay? And this is the same thing with me, right? If I look to her to fill all of my needs, that's not gonna be a good thing for her or for me. But I've been second because she puts Jesus first. Now again, so like I said, this isn't intended to put more pressure. It's not about performance. It is about a state of peace. And then that leads me to my third thing. A wife becomes a powerful influence when she, thirdly, displays fearless belief and devotion. Here's another doozy coming at you. Here we go. For this is how the holy women who hoped in God used to adorn themselves, by submitting to their own husbands, as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord. And you are her children if you do good and not fear anything that is frightening. What do you do with that? Well, it's interesting to me that he chose Sarah as an example of Abraham and Sarah, right? Because Sarah, she was not a perfect person at all. In fact, she was the one who was like 80 years old, didn't have any children, but they were promised to have children. So she decides to circumvent God's will for the whole thing and says to Abraham, hey, look, here's my servant Hagar. She's like a third of my age. Why don't you sleep with her and then we can have a baby that way? And Abraham's like, well, if you insist. So he goes and does that. And then that just caused a little bit of chaos throughout world history, okay? That whole outcome. So not her finest moment, not his finest moment, but that's what happened. But here's the deal. The thing that is awesome about Sarah, and people don't talk about this, is that in the story of Abraham and Sarah, it's when God calls Abraham, he doesn't call Sarah. It's not like the story says, God goes, hey, you two, I'm going to take you on this journey. You're going to leave everything you know, all of your whole culture, your whole life, and I'm going to take you, and you don't know where you're going to go, and you're going to live as a nomad for the rest of your life, and I'm going to give you a child, even though you're not going to have one until you're like 90, but I'll keep that hidden from you. And so just so you know, I'm telling you both. That's not what the story says. It says God tells Abraham, and then Abraham tells Sarah. And Sarah's got to go, okay, what do I do with this, right? So at some point, she has to trust that God is leading Abraham, and she follows Abraham in that. And I think that's much harder than just following God. Because, hopefully, okay, I hope. And no one ever honors her for the courage and devotion that it took on her end. I think about the fact, so we moved to Utah this week, so we are now Park City residents with you all. Thank you. Thank you all to those who helped with the move, and a lot of people showed up and helped, and it was awesome. We got that truck unloaded great, and it's fantastic. We're still unboxing all kinds of stuff. But I think about moving from here, or from Phoenix to here, and it wasn't like God came to Judy and said, hey, I want you to leave the house that you've been in for 16 years, that you just remodeled 2 years ago, that you raised all 3 of your children in, and leave the job that you love and that you have great relationships with and you do very well at, and you feel like you're very connected there. I want you to leave all that and go to a place where you don't know anybody. It's not like God told her that. I told her that. And I said, hey, and if you think, by the way, if you think that I walked in the house and said, hey, babe, well, we're going to move to Utah. And she went, wow, you're so brilliant. I'm going to go to Home Depot right now and get some boxes. That is not how it went, okay? This is like me coming and going, so there's these people out there way up on a mountain where it snows and stuff, but not that much. It's not like Chicago and, all that stuff. But that's the thing, right? Because she's been with me for 26 years. I had some crazy ideas. Like when I was younger, I'd come home and say, babe, we're going to move to Australia. Because people need Jesus. I'm 1/4 Australian. People need Jesus in Australia. I'm like, let's go. Come on, let's have some. Let's go for it. She's like, what are you? And then finally, she learned to just go. Yeah, I'd say these things. She'd go, why don't you just go for a run? So I go for a run, come back. I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna go to. That's a dumb idea. Who wants to go there? So she learned how to manage my volatility, right? But at some point on this journey, she had to say, okay. And her faith in God allowed her the strength to believe in me. And I think that is really what most men would rather hear from their wives, even more than I love you, is I believe in you. Because I love you is great. I love you too. But when you sit down and go, hey, I just want you to know I believe in you. Like, whoa. I mean, men, isn't it an amazing thing when a woman believes in you and is devoted to you? Because we know that we're idiots, right? I mean, we're just like, okay. In fact, I think that's why a lot of men tear up when they see their bride come down the aisle, I mean, it's one thing. I mean, of course, she looks breathtakingly beautiful. But I think the real reason is because she actually showed up. It's like, really? Like you did all that for, okay. It's like a moving thing, right? Because it's like, and really all a wedding is just a recreation of the story of Adam and Eve. I mean, you're alone in your little pathetic bachelor pad or whatever, and then suddenly here she is. And you're like, Adam, at last, finally. And then she comes alongside and then she says she believes in you, and you don't even always believe in yourself. And it's like, what is it about a woman that can have that capacity, the essence of the feminine soul, the expression of the imago Dei is nothing less than the strength of their devotion. Now, sadly, it can be abused, and it often is when a guy strings her along or is mean or cruel to her, and then, but she just hangs on because she has this false sense of hope. And so, ladies, when you're looking for a husband, you need to have godly discernment. You don't look for a project. You don't look for someone to fix. You're not adopting a shelter pet. You find someone that you can respect. You find someone that you can believe in. And you have the courage to hold out for that. And you demand that. And it's amazing how women will respond to, or how men will respond to a woman who says, look, I just want you to know I'm just not marrying anybody. I'm looking for someone who has the courage to lead and set the tone for this family, and someone that I can get behind. Otherwise, deal's off. Like, I don't, sorry. Like, and I don't think women realize that if they demanded that, I think a lot of guys would rather. Not that, they should anyway, but there's something about the voice of a woman speaking into a man's life that can be really powerful if it's driven by the Spirit of God and courage. And that's why he's saying, don't be afraid of stuff, right? This is what Peter's saying. Because there's nothing like a woman's ability to believe in someone, to be devoted to someone, and to see what no one else sees, even when sometimes there's no logical reason to do so. A guy named Randall Wallace, writer of the epic movie Braveheart, remember that? Wrote a book called Living the Braveheart Life. And he talks about the influence that his mother had on him. And he says this, he says, I believe it is impossible to overestimate the power a boy feels and the influence it has in his life when he looks at his mother and sees that she has seen him, has looked into his soul, and found something there that makes her glow. And it's like, that's so cool, because there's this like what we can do for a young man to have the presence of a woman say, I see something in you. There's power in that. And what women bring to the table is not their ability to be like men, but to fill in where we leave off, because we are only one side. We are one half of the imago Dei. We are not the other side, and we can't be. And so we don't need women to be more like men. We need women to be more like women. And this is not to say that women can't be leaders or have positions of authority out in the world. There's tremendous leaders in here that are women. I work with tremendous female leaders.